Hi, everybody. Welcome to Building Connections Through Virtual Learning. My name is Daniel Inman, and I'm coming to you from a small town called Weimar in South Central Germany. So welcome. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to do a bit of movement. So we're going to play a game called Red or Black. And I discovered this game with Dallas Sidebottom a while back. I'll talk more about it later in the presentation because I want to get us up and moving. Basically, I have a small deck of cards, and you're going to guess red or black. So think about that. I will make this bigger. So red or black. So think about that. If you guess the right color, so if I pull red and you guess red, you're going to do 5 squats. If you guess black and I pulled red, you're going to do the following. And we're going to play 5 rounds. So in the first round, you do 5 half jacks. Okay? So I want everybody to think red or black, and this is round 1. Okay? Everybody ready? Now, if I was doing this with students, I would have them do some kind of motion so I know they've made a choice. I think I can trust you there. So red or black, choose a side. And I have red. So I want you to, if you chose red, you're going to do 5 squats. If you chose black, you're going to do 5 half jacks. Okay? So if you don't know what half jack is, I don't do a jumping jack because of the seat moving here. So here we go, 5 half jacks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. Okay? If you won, you did 5 squats. Okay? So round 2. So red or black. Choose a color. And we have red again. So if you chose red, you're going to do 5 squats. If you chose black, you're going to do 5 push-ups with me. Again, if you need to modify this to your way, modify it. If you need to make it easier, make it harder, whatever. So 5 push-ups. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that was round 2. If you guess the right, if you guess the right color, you get a point for each round. So you could have 2 points so far. So round 3, red or black. Here we go. And it's black this time. So if you chose black, 5 squats. If you chose red, 5 lunges. So again, it can be your regular lunge. You want to do a reverse lunge, side lunge. It's whatever you want to do. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it's round 3. So round 4, red or black. Here we go. So we have red again. So if you guess red, 5 squats. If you guessed black, I want you to do 5 crunches or sit-ups, okay? So I'm gonna do crunches. So here we go. 1, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So pretty simple. That was round 4. Now comes the final round. You could have 4 points so far. So red or black. So I want you to think about that. And we have red again, King of Diamonds. So if you guessed red, 5 squats. If you guessed wrong, if you guessed black, I want you to see your best dance move, but 5 times. Give me a series of moves. It can be flossing for 5, whatever. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so pretty simple. So you could have gotten 5 points. If you want to put your points in the back channel, you can do that, but that's entirely up to you. If I did this with kids and I had the chat function turned on, I would throw that in the chat function for them. So a little bit of movement from the get-go, just like we would do in class. So now I'm going to just give you a couple of stories, okay, about me. So these are personal stories. So just so you can see that. So I want you to just listen. You don't have to see this. So the 2 personal stories, a sad and negative memory and a happy positive memory. Start with the sad negative. So when I was 8 years old, I tried out for a local baseball team. Now, baseball was my chosen sport, mainly because it wasn't that I was great at it. I was okay at it, but it was a sport my brother didn't play it because I have an older brother who was a bit more athletic than me. Anyway, I tried out with this baseball team. Went to the 4 or 5 practices to try out. On the 4th or 5th day, the coach called us all together, the entire team. Everybody was trying out, and announced, if I call your name, you didn't make it. And he said my name and one other name. And just, it was a really sad and negative moment for me, just because, one, he did it in front of everybody, and two, it was something I really wanted to do. And I don't remember exactly how he said it or anything like that, but I do remember walking off the field into the woods nearby. I can still picture this today, and sitting down on a stump and crying because I wanted to be on the team. Now, in the end, it turned out okay, because the next year I did make the team and I kept playing for a few more years, baseball at least. So it was fun and enjoyed it. But I just remember that feeling with that coach, who was also my PE teacher at school, that I don't know if I really trusted him or had a positive relationship with him after that, just because of not making the team. Now, it wasn't his fault necessarily. It was just, I think it was more of just being called out in front of people and whatnot. Now, on the opposite note, on a happy, positive note, about the same time, I had my 4th grade teacher, Miss Gowans, was fantastic. I just remember just the general feeling. I don't remember anything specific we learned in grade 4, but I remember the feeling in her classroom was just one of trust and family. So it was all about, working your hardest. If you make a mistake, you own up to it and you keep trying. So I thought that was really good. And that's one thing that helped me as a teacher. And it's something that I try to do as I teach. I don't try to call people out, my students. So that's part of it. And that's virtually or in the classroom. And I also try to build that trusting relationship like Ms. Gowans did with all of us in grade 4. So that leads me to this slide. So I have some questions for you. You don't have to put these in the chat, but think about it. So thinking back to any time you were in school, could be when you were a child, could be elementary school, middle school, high school, college, could be a summer camp or a summer school you went to, could be anything. Can you name at least one teacher that you had a great connection with? Now, to take that a step further, think about one that you had a bad or a poor connection with. Maybe someone you didn't trust or feel great with. So think about that. Now, I want you to think about both of those teachers, or teachers, if it's more than one with each. Think about the commonalities with those teachers. Is there something that made you feel good with the great teachers, or made you feel bad with the ones you had a poor or bad connection? Not saying they're bad teachers. Now think about this. The ones that made you feel good, do you do something like that with the kids that you work with? And the ones that you had a bad or poor connection, if you can identify why, do you try not to do that for your students? Okay, so I want you to keep thinking about that because it plays into this next slide. Okay, move my face out of the way. Okay, so I want you to think about that great teacher and see if you can put it in 1 or 2 words. What emotion or feeling do you have when you think about that great teacher? Feel free to throw it in the chat box. So the word for me with the story from earlier is trust. I felt trusted. And how awesome is that for an 8 or 9-year-old to feel trusted, feel that he or she is trusted by a teacher? And then think about it a step further. What emotion or feeling do you have with that teacher you had a poor connection with or a bad relationship with? Can you name it? That's a thing you may not be able to do. It could be just a gut feeling. And now lastly, and I do, if you would, and if you feel okay doing it, I want you to put this in the chat box. And it can be more than 1 word if it needs to be. But I want you to think and be honest. What would your students say about you in this situation? What would they say you make them feel, or if they have a feeling about you? So one of my funny things is in several of the schools I've taught in, not the current one yet, because I've only been here about 6 months. Um, I've had students come up to me, you know, second year I was there, third year I was there, whatever, and say, you know, Mr. Inman, do you know why we like you? And I'm like, no, why don't you tell me? And there's a story, but it always comes down to, we like you because you're weird and we think you're yourself around us. So being myself around them for the most part. So I think that's one key thing that's pretty cool about a kid. So think about that. In the back channel, I'll be chatting with some of you if you want to talk about this. So feel free. Oops. So just some general information about me. This will show up back at the end too. But my name is Daniel Inman. I'm a PYP, so primary years program, and middle years program PE teacher at Thuringia International School in Weimar, Germany. So we're about 2.5 hours south of Berlin by train. My Twitter handle is there, my personal email. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or message on Twitter. Give me a day or two to get back to you because we are back at school. So I'm teaching grade 9, small groups, 10 or less at a time right now. Grade 4 and 5 come back next week, so it'll be interesting. But I am from North Carolina, taught in the US for a while, and have taught in Asia and now Europe. So that's a little bit of my background. If you want to know more, send me a message. So if you Google building connections through virtual learning, you see all these lists. And if you notice, the top one and the fourth one are both done in the last month and a half. So think about that as you're making. This is still a new field, still learning. Be willing to make mistakes on this. Be willing for your students to make mistakes. So just a gist of some of what these links say. For the American Psychological Association, APA, this is in the classroom virtually whenever, do make an effort, connect with each student, call them by name, know their interest. Try to spend time with students, and I'm gonna address that on a slide or two from now. Demonstrate what you want to do. If you want your students to do 5 half jacks, do 5 half jacks with them. So demonstrate what you're doing, okay? And that goes into a lot of other things. Especially if you can get your difficult or shy students to come online and interact, that's great. But even if they're just coming online and watching, that's something, you know, it's better than them sitting at home, not interacting at all. So don't assume relationships are inconsequential. So think about that as you go through things. So know that's going to happen, okay? And try to be proactive with everything as always. And there's a link to those down there, okay? So I just want you to think about that. Now, why do we build connections? So I got a lot of this just from reading about the casual standards for social emotional learning, because I think that we take care of that and it helps the physical learning too. So these are some things I believe. So I build connections, we build connections to build trust among and between people. So between students and teachers, between teachers. So between all of us. So it's really important. So to build that interpersonal confidence. What I mean by that is to give the students confidence to speak up when they see something or do something or they have an idea. So this is building those communication skills too, those listening and speaking skills that are so important. The International Baccalaureate IB calls them approaches to learning skills, a lot of these. So understanding and caring for others, and this comes into play a little bit later. So understanding others and understanding perspectives. So building positive social engagement. So not just engagement for the sake of engagement, but positive, something that makes them feel good, feel better over time. So, and then better perspective taking. So this goes through empathy, appreciating diversity, which is very important in our schools and life today, and showing respect, not only for others, but for themselves. So there's also many, many more, and we could probably sit here all day talking about these. If you have a big one you think is important, maybe throw it in the chat box and we can talk about it a bit. So now some things I try to do virtually as a teacher. Now let me tell you a little bit about my situation teaching virtually. So a lot of what I do is asynchronous, meaning I don't do live video chats. I do a lot of recorded videos and different things, not a lot, but a fair amount. I do 2 lessons a week live. I was told to do 2 or 3 just because, one, not to overload myself, but also not to overload the students because they're doing multiple reading groups and math groups and language groups and music and other things already, and plus lack of devices and things like that. So contained. So what happens is 1 day a week I see on video chat or video teaching. I do EP, which is my kindergartners, my grade 1 and grade 2, all together. So I'll have anywhere between 20 and 60 kids if all of them log on. Later in the week, I do a similar lesson built more for older kids with grade 3, 4, and 5. And again, that's 25, 30 kids up to 80 if they all log on, which I've not had all log on. The most I've had has been about 60. So I think that's pretty good considering it's at 8 in the morning on a Wednesday for them. So that's my situation with the live stuff. And some of the things I do live, I'll tell you about. I'll talk about some of the things I do asynchronously later. So I do still try to greet all of my students by name. Again, if it's 60 kids in the chat room and their videos are turned off, I can't always tell who it is because we use Zoom, or I use Zoom. And with Zoom, you can kind of pick what your name is. So a lot of them, their name is not their name. It may say Little Fox or something like that. So I still yell out that name if I see something. But other than that, I may not see them. And that's okay because they are not required and I can't require them to turn video on or even talk. So I do try to talk to them and say good morning when they come in, good afternoon if it's in the afternoon, say goodbye as appropriate, have a good day. I'll say guten Tag, guten Morgen, because a lot of my kids are German. So that kind of thing. I do show myself kind of like I am in the video here. So I don't do a lot of slideshows. I try to show them this is like my sunroom at home. I teach in my living room some. Sometimes I'm at school in a gymnasium because we have to do certain things at work. So it's different places and I show myself and what I'm doing. I do give them or try to give them time to talk about things outside of PE class. It can be about music class. It can be about walking through the park or what they did over the weekend. I don't give them a ton of time of that because it's just too many kids talking all at once. But it works. So I do discuss some of what I'm doing with my PE newsletter. You'll see an example of that later. I do talk about what I'm doing, what I'm working on, what I'm learning, things like that. So I try to give them a glimpse into my life, just like I'd like a glimpse into their lives. And I do try, this last point is I try to give them the time to talk. And I do that a couple different ways, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Okay. Now, these are major. So obstacles to building connections, and behind my name it says virtually, but this is connections in the classroom a lot of the time too. So think about this. So time. And my teaching, time is a big thing. So I have them online for 30 to 40 minutes once a week if they log on with me. So, which a lot of them don't. Some do. Some do every time, some don't. So time is a thing. So how do you build when you don't have that? So the number of students. Now this is classroom or virtually. So virtually, you know, if I'm dealing with 60 kids, how do I build that with one kid? If I'm in a classroom and I don't, luckily my biggest class at school is 34 kids and that's manageable. Some of you I know teach 80 to 90 kids at a time. So how do you do that? With virtually, this plays a major role, technology. Do our kids have access? Are they chatting on a cell phone? Are they on a tablet? Are they on a laptop, a regular computer? How are they communicating with you? If they're communicating with you, do they even have that technology? And then you have the internet. I don't know how it's been back in the US, but here in Germany, it's been hit or miss a little bit. It's been some lag, and I don't know if it's everybody logging on or what, but it's an interesting dynamic that's causing some minor issues with us. Language. Now, I can feel myself occasionally as I'm talking to you right now, I start speaking up faster and getting a little bit fast, which is not what you do when you're teaching students who speak languages other than English. So think about that as you're teaching. What language are your kids learning in? Because most of us teach kids and that their home language is different than the language we're teaching with. Not always. But like the majority of my students, their first language is German, but I also have kids that first language is Arabic, first language is Spanish, first language is Russian. So it's a mix. There's a few first English or English. And then of course, just like in the classroom, we have those difficult and disinterested students. So what do we do with those? So think about other hurdles. So your hurdles may be different from mine because we're each in a unique perspective. So I want you to think about that. Now I want you to think about, how do we really encourage this, especially in this era of social distancing? So what do we do to encourage students to connect not only with us as their teacher or teachers, but with one another and others? So, so I have a little game for you, a little activity. I'm going to minimize, well, I'm going to move just because this is one of my favorite images. So I had this on a t-shirt. Anyway, so this is a task, and this is something I do sometimes with kids, is when I say go, I want you to go get the following items. Should be 4 items. I want you to get something to write with, something you wear on your head, something you drink out of, and a set of keys. So you should have 4 items when you come back, and I'm going to give you 1 minute. Okay. Now with the kids, I may say go touch something instead of get something. So using your elbow, go touch something blue, something round, touch a door, and something brown. So, and I would have an image of that up in front. And I got that idea from Tracy Lockwood of Play Education. Her memory task cards are fantastic. Anyway, so I want you to get something to write with, something you wear on your head, something you drink out of, and a set of keys. And I'm going to give you a minute to do it. So here we go. Ready? When the little video says start.
The game begins in 3, 2, 1.
So just a quick task to get you up and moving. And I'll talk a little bit more about this task in a little bit, but I want you to think about why I would want you to do this. So, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. I want you to think about it, okay? So how do I build some of this virtually? How do I help try to build these connections? So there's a lot of things I try to do, and I'm still learning. This is only a process I've been doing. We've been social distancing and things are closed about 6 weeks ago, but 2 weeks of that we were actually at spring break, so it was kind of a break. So these are some of the things I do virtually. So I do movement from the start. So I do games, and they're usually either with me or versus me, such as the red and black game that we played. It may be versus me, such as you're trying to beat me in rock, paper, scissors. So I may say, let's play rock, paper, scissors, and I tell them how we're going to play, so how many times. Because I've learned in my travels and teaching in different countries that each country plays a little bit differently. So I'll go rock, paper, scissors, and then if you won, you do this. If you tied me, you do this. If you lost to me, you do this. So and you gain points if you want to do points. You can do games with cards, dice. It's really whatever you want to do. That's really quick, really simple. You want to keep it simple because this plays into the unofficial story I'll talk about in a minute. But you want to keep it simple. That way, if someone comes in late, you can explain it to them really quickly and they pick it up. Now, something I've started doing lately is called breakout groups. This is something you do via Zoom. I think you can do it via Google Hangouts, but not really familiar with Google Hangouts. What I do with this is I'll have all the kids, after we do an activity, or maybe after I've talked a little bit, I'll give them a chance. I'll give them a question, maybe a reflection. It may be like, what activity did you do this weekend? Or how did that game go for you? Or what did you think about this? And I would break the people into groups. What's great about Zoom is you can set these groups ahead of time, which I don't because I don't know who's showing up. Or you can do it automatically by number per group. So I usually do 4 or 5 kids. I do it, it does it automatically. The extra kids I throw into a group. And I join in and talk with them. And I think this is good for a couple of reasons. One, they're only seeing 4 or 5 people on the screen, including themselves. So it's limited numbers that gives them more confidence in speaking, hopefully. Also, it's kids. It's not me always, because I'll jump in and out, usually out more than in. So give them a chance to talk. And it's usually set on a timer. I usually do about 2 minutes, depending on the concept or whatever. So I've had some feedback from parents that they like this, that the kids like this. So I may try doing it more, not for longer, but maybe do a couple of times during the session. That way they get with a couple of different groups of kids. I do try to join in and throw in my 2 cents. So like, what's your favorite non-physical activity? And I love building with Legos. So I have a ton of Legos and I enjoy doing it. I actually built the New York skyline earlier today. Now, from there, I go into interactive challenges. Now, these may be before or after the breakouts, but during. And I usually preference this with an invite to Zoom saying you need to bring this and this. So for instance, I might say you need to bring a bucket and an animal to throw in. And what we're going to do is play a little game. Okay. So we'll set a timer. I have the timer on the screen like you saw earlier. I'll say, depending on your grade level, your comfort level, whatever, step away. If you want harder, smaller bucket, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have a throwing. I'm going to step off the green here. And I'll say ready, set, go. And it's how many times can you throw it in the bucket in 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever. Okay. Now I'm looking at the screen because I've got the kids on a grid view usually because I don't do the slideshows. And we're throwing back and forth, moving around. So some of the kids really get into this, some of them not as much. So we play this for 2 minutes. The sound goes off. I have music playing like I normally do in PE. Sound goes off. And I get the kids, if I have the chat function set up, I get them to write their numbers. So they got 18, 25, 30, whatever. Makes, they throw it in the chat box. If they don't, I try to get them to hold it up in hands. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Working on that. But, you know, getting them to interact with the room and with me, even though we're not physically in the same place, I think that helps a lot. Now, the next couple of things I've done, but I got the official names a week ago or 2 weeks ago from a webinar by Playmeo by Mark Collard out of Australia and Chad Littlefield from, I think it's Me and I. The link will be on the last slide. But so the unofficial start. So if you noticed at the beginning, I wouldn't do this in class, but I started with an activity that was really simple, really basic, and I did that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives an unofficial start to the class, so the kids know to come in that we're going to be doing a game right away. So it's like that warm-up in PE class at school. There's always that game that's going on. Hopefully it gets kids to log on a little bit quicker. Seems to help with my older kids. I notice a lot more logged on at the beginning than 3-4 minutes after now. So it's an unofficial start. So you get that going. It's an easy game, something to do. It doesn't have to be a game necessarily. Like if you're in a class, it might be pick up a card, find somebody with the same card and talk about this. So something like that. So just to get them up, moving and whatnot. So, and then breaking the virtual bubble. I've done this in my teaching in the classroom and definitely in my teaching online. I try to get the kids up and moving out of their bubble. So think about your virtual bubble. So think about, you know, just around you, like we talk about in class, the hula hoop bubble or your bubble of space, spatial awareness and all that. But in this case, instead of not popping, we do want to pop this bubble. We want to get the kids up, moving away from the screen a little bit. So if you noticed in the interactive game we just did, I backed away. I broke out of that bubble. That task I sent you with the T-Rex, you had to go get 4 items. You had to break that bubble, most likely. I doubt most of you had all 4 items within reach. You probably had most of them. Or like the movement game at the beginning, you know, to do your exercise, like push-ups, I have to stand up and move back. So I'm breaking that bubble. So you're getting the kids up and out of that space and it's getting them energized. So both the unofficial start and the breaking of the virtual bubble gets the kids moving. It gets them energized. They get more focused on you and what's going on. And if you're doing it with them, it adds a lot more buy-in from them. And you also give the students choices. So think back to the red-black game. So the kids had a choice there. They pick red or black. Now, is it a big choice? Is it a huge momentous choice? No, it's a really small choice, but it gives them choice. So you can also add to the exercises on that. Like I did real basic exercises. It doesn't have to be exercise. It can be like the dance. It could be 10 punches, as Dale Sidebottom would do. Or it could be pretend you're dribbling a basketball 5 times. Or pretend you're riding a bike. You know, it can be actions instead of strict exercise. So think about that. If you have any questions on any of this, throw it in the chat box to the side. Also, on the one of the last slides, I gave you some links to Playmeo, which is Mark Collard and Chad Littlefield stuff that have some good ideas also if you want to check it out, which is where a lot of this, not a lot, but some of this came from. Now, other ways that I'm attempting to communicate and connect with my students, this is more asynchronously, so I'm not doing video live with this. So I'll go through a couple of these with you in a moment just to show you what I'm doing. A couple of these I'm still learning and figuring out myself. So Flipgrid, I'm using it, but it's something we're having some minor issues with because of email. I'll talk about that more on the next slide, I think. But it's videos of the students giving feedback and discussing different topics. And it's a direct video. They're not having a conversation. They're just talking to the screen. But it's in response to a topic that I gave them or an idea that I gave them. Seesaw, I think, is similar to Flipgrid in that they can do videos, but they can also take pictures, write something down, share screenshots. My grade 1 team came to me about a week and a half ago and said, we're using Seesaw. Do you want us to add you to it? I said, yes, but I haven't taken a lot of time to look at it with everything else going on right now. But it's something I want to look into because it'll give me a chance to maybe do some videos with the kids and their learning. I do try, like grade 4 and 5 have school emails. So I try to email them. The other grades, I use their parents' emails. So I email the parents to communicate. So I try to do that. I get some communication there, but not a lot. One thing I did do is I invited all the lower school, so K-5 teachers at my school, to submit a video to me. It's about 30 seconds or less, just saying thank you to the kids or good work to the kids or something like that. And I took iMovie and put them all together in one video, and we shared it out via the principal's newsletter. I know the one I did, we have a small school, lower school is 170, 180 kids, and I know I've gotten over 300 views, so that's pretty cool. The current thing I'm doing with compilations is I've got students from each grade level in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'm going to see how that goes and maybe get lower, doing thanks or showing a little bit of gratitude to their teachers, and I'm going to compile that. It's where I'm using Flipgrid or just email. Another thing, and I'll show an example of this later, is a weekly newsletter. So it's an idea of what they can do at home. It's also some of what I'm doing. I'll go through that more in a moment. Also, something I'm working on in the next week or two is a Pass the Bottle challenge, and I'll go more into detail in a couple of slides with that. So Flipgrid. So if I send out one to like my grade 3 or younger, they click on a link, they go to this. Now, the big thing with Flipgrid is you have to log on with a Microsoft or Google email address. If you don't have that, then it causes some issues. And that's what's caused some issues for us because our grade 3 and under don't really have access to the school emails yet, even though they have Google emails, they never used them. And a lot of my parents here in Germany don't use Google or Microsoft, so they have email addresses from somewhere else. So what we've tried, and it's worked a little bit, is we have a generic grade 3 email for students, grade 3 students at school.com, basically. So they can log on to this. I give them password. I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So they go, it probably goes straight to the thing. Yeah, normally it would say password. You type in a password. You can choose to have that or not have that. It says, you can decide all of this behind. So the background image with the elephant can be whatever, the name can be whatever, trial run can be grade 3G, whatever you want it to be. This is just a welcome, say hello. So you can come down here, you see I've done it a couple of times, you hit the green button. I think I have a minute and a half, say hello. You can do whatever you want. It gives you some things to play around with. If the kids don't like being videoed, then they can hit, there's a setting in there where they can pixelate themselves, so you can still hear them, but you can't see really what they look like or anything like that. So it's just a good way, and you can make the videos where they're hidden before the kids can see them, so you can proof You can edit the video, not edit, but proof the videos, make sure they're okay before you share them again. So one thing I'm doing is that, so the Flipgrid. If you want more information about that, hit me up. I can help what I know. It's still a new device for me. So this is a screenshot of my phys ed newsletter. So a lot of this has, sorry for, I didn't notice that up in the top left, but I use Bitmojis to create some fun little images of myself. I tell them kind of what I'm doing down the left side or what I want them to do. So this is week 2, so you can see the day. It's been a while, but I talk to them, suggest things. I lay it out because we were trying to do more asynchronous non-screen time. So try to lay out some things that were that way to begin with. We've done a little bit more synchronous learning since then. But these resources, I give them links or ideas of whatever to do. I do a morning breathing routine or a breathing drill with them at PE. So this is something we do here. So I give them a couple of options of what to do. So, and then I created a school PE YouTube channel just to give some of this because it's easier to share that way than Google Classroom and whatnot. And then, of course, they've got, at the bottom, I've cut it off here, but they have my school email address, my information for school if they need anything. So some weeks it's 1 page, some weeks it's 2 or 3 pages. It really depends on what I'm adding to it. So that's something I send out. Depending on the grade level, I get shared out every week. So, and then the pass the bottle challenge I was talking about earlier, I forgot to bring my bottle in here with me, but I've seen this online. I'm going to show you a quick video of a pass the ball because it doesn't have to be a bottle, it can be a roll of toilet paper. So basically what you're trying to do is get the kids to take a short video. You can kind of do it in Zoom or Google, I think, if you can get it. I haven't really tried it. This is something I'm going to try this week. But basically, I'll take the cards I have in my hand over here. So basically, they're going to take something from the left side and then move it to the right side. It's pretty simple. And then you can make the video, compile it together to where it's a pretty fun video. So here's a quick link of an under 10 soccer, I believe. So. Something I haven't done that yet, but it's something I want to try with a bottle, with a roll of toilet paper, with a football. My kids are football nuts here in Germany, by the way. So anyway, so one thing we do still try to do is reflect with the kids during and after the lessons. So during the lessons, I may ask them to give me thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe type in the chat box to the side about what we're doing. After the lesson, I may ask them for a written or a video reflection or photograph. And a reflection could be if they're doing a challenge like this, maybe they compete against their brother or their mother or whoever, and they do a quick video of that. So it's not so much a reflection, it's just showing what they're doing. We do discussions in our breakout rooms occasionally. That's one of the questions I can use. It allows me to check for their understanding if they share videos or written reflections. It also allows them to speak with each others and focus on that. And it helps me to decide what we need to do next. So I do try to get family feedback because I do work with little ones too. So trying to get them is what I'm doing, virtually working. So, you know, that may be mom and dad's in the video with us and working out or doing the exercises and activity. So thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe type in the chat. So any of that. I've also got emails from parents saying different things. So I want you to think about that. So that's important to me. So again, my information. So I'm not saying that I know everything there is about teaching virtually or making connections. I've only been doing it for 4 weeks. I've really only been doing the online live stuff for 3 weeks. So that's relatively new to me also. But I think it's important to think about and build these connections. And even if it just takes a minute, a lot of this is probably already what you're doing, but just to be aware and be purposeful in what you're doing with your students. So think about that. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up via email. Give me a few days to decide because we are going back to school this week with certain grades. If you want to ask more about that, you can hit me up in the back channel. I'll say a little bit more there. And then just some of the resources. Oh, there. All right, a couple of resources. I skipped it. So Playmio is a website with a bunch of activities. There's some free access now. I believe Mark Collard's allowed. So you can look at a few, see if you're interested. He's a great presenter out of Australia. He's got some good things on YouTube too. So look him up, Mark Collard, if you, I can put that in the back channel. We and Me is Chad Littlefield and Will Lewis, I believe, out of the US. I think Chad's out of Asheville, North Carolina. So some good information about building connections in person, but also he's done some stuff virtually. A couple of things I'll talk about, I need to add. Energetic Education is Dale Sidebottom. He's the one that gave me the idea for the movements at the beginning and things like that. He's got a lot of good stuff. He's done a lot of free webinars lately, did a TEDx talk a while back, so feel free to look him up. And then, of course, Flipgrid. One thing I've thought about doing is with my Zoom kids, because I watch everybody in the grid view, is, when we finish PE or finish a game, you try to get kids to do a high five or a fist bump or whatever it is. Obviously, in this day and age with social distancing, we can't do that. So we can do the air five, but in Zoom, it's kind of cool, or grid view. So you have, everybody's on the grid. I may see 12 or 14 faces, and we go 1, 2, 3, and then we high five to the side of a box. And it looks like we're high fiving each other. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so that's my take on making connections virtually. I hope you were able to get something out of it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything, hit me up in the back channel chat right now with Jorge, or catch me online at my Twitter address or my email. So thanks, and have a good day.